Arizona Territory, September 1887. The sun had dropped hours ago, and the wind whispered dry across the abandoned platform of the Red Rock station. Vera Halstead stood alone beside her battered carpetbag, her boots coated in red dust, her lips cracked from heat and worry. The last stagecoach had pulled away before dusk, its driver spitting apologies and something about a broken axle near Winslow. She had stepped off for water, and when she came back, they were gone. Her coin pouch too snatched by someone while she was distracted at the pump. She was stranded, penniless, alone. Every part of her ached. She had not eaten all day, and her only dress, blue cotton, faded and mended at the sleeves, offered little protection against the chill settling over the high desert. Vera wrapped her arms around herself and sat on the edge of the platform, staring out at the moon rising over the buttes. It cast a silver sheen across the flat land, stretching long shadows along the rails. She had come west with a plan, a teaching position in Prescott, a new beginning. Now all she had was the dark. A horse's hooves broke the silence. She stood quickly, heart-thudding, eyes sweeping the horizon until she spotted a rider approaching from the south trail. The man rode slow, his hat pulled low, his silhouette framed by the moonlight. A pack horse followed behind him, its saddle weighed down with supplies. He reined in about 10 feet away, boots hitting the ground with a thud as he dismounted. Dust swirled around his legs. He pushed his hat back, revealing sharp cheekbones, a day's stubble, and eyes that looked like they had seen too much sun and not enough sleep. "You waiting on someone?" he asked, voice low and even. Vera hesitated. "I was. But they left. Took everything I had with them." He looked past her toward the empty rail line and the boarded-up station office. Then back to her. "Name's Isaac Merrick," he said. "I was heading north, but I have room on the pack horse if you need a ride." She studied him. He could have been 30, maybe older. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a quiet steadiness that made her chest ease just a little. "I do not have a cent to my name," she said. He nodded once, then stepped forward and held out his hand. "Come on. It is cold, and I make a decent fire." She looked at his hand. It was rough, calloused, but steady. Under the moonlight, Vera Halstead reached out and took the cowboy's hand. They rode for another hour, until they found a good spot near a dry creek. Isaac swung down and started setting up camp while Vera helped gather kindling. He worked quietly, efficiently, and she noticed the way he watched her without making her feel stared at. When the fire was lit and the coffee pot set to boil, he passed her a strip of dried meat and a piece of hard biscuit. "Not much," he said, "but it will help." She ate slowly, chewing until her jaw ached. The warmth from the fire was a balm to her stiff limbs. "What were you doing out that way?" he asked after a while, his voice gentler now. "Not many folks passing through Red Rock these days." "I was heading to Prescott. There was a teaching job waiting. Or there was supposed to be." She rubbed her hands together. "I suppose that is gone now too." He stared into the flames. "Maybe not. I have cattle near Chino Valley. The town's not far. I will take you there. Someone will know about the job." "You do this often?" she asked. "Pick up strangers at deserted stations?" Isaac gave the faintest shake of his head. "No, but I saw you. You looked like you needed someone." She swallowed, looking down at her hands. "I did." They shared silence after that. Not uncomfortable. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels safe. Later, when the fire burned low and the wind picked up, he handed her his bedroll and took watch near the horses. She tried to protest, but he only said, "You look more tired than I do." She lay down, hearing the creak of his saddle as he sat watching the hills. In the morning, she woke to coffee already brewed and the scent of bacon from a small skillet over the coals. Isaac knelt nearby, stirring the pan. "You cook too?" she asked, brushing her hair back. "I do not believe in going hungry," he said, glancing up. "Sleep well?" She nodded. "Better than I have in weeks." They ate together and then packed up. He helped her mount the pack horse, adjusting the saddle carefully so she would not slip. Isaac rode beside her, never too far, never too close. By midday, they reached the edge of Chino Valley. The land rolled open with dry grass and fences scattered across the hills. A few ranches dotted the distance. As they rode into a small cluster of buildings, 2 stores, a post office, and a church, Vera's chest tightened. He noticed. "You want me to come with you?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." They walked into the post office together. The clerk, a grizzled man with spectacles, blinked when he saw them. "Miss Halstead." Vera stepped forward. "Yes. I was meant to arrive 2 days ago. There was trouble." The man nodded slowly, pulling a folded letter from behind the counter. "We figured something happened. The school board left this for you." She unfolded it. The job was still hers if she could start by Monday. She looked at Isaac, who had not said a word. "I suppose I have a place here after all," she said softly. He nodded once, eyes steady on hers. "Good." She took a breath, then asked, "Will you stay a while?" "Just until I get settled." He studied her face for a moment, then gave a small, certain nod. "Yes." Vera smiled. It was the first real one in days. And Isaac Merrick, Cowboy, quiet and kind, smiled back. The boarding house sat on the south edge of town, where the grass gave way to hard earth and the wind carried the scent of juniper and stove smoke. Vera stood on the porch with her satchel pressed tight against her side, squinting at the small sign above the door, Mrs. Thistle's rooms. Isaac set her trunk down beside the step. "You sure about this place?" She nodded. "It's quiet. That's all I need." He tipped his hat back and studied the porch. "I'll stay in town through the week. Got business at the livery and a man I need to speak with up near Del Rio." Her fingers tightened around the satchel strap. "Will you leave after?" "I'll wait till you're settled," he said. "Then see what needs doing." The door creaked open just then, and a short woman in a rust-colored shawl stepped out. Her eyes flitted from Vera to Isaac and back again, sharp as a hawk's but not unkind. "You're the teacher," she said. "They sent word you might be late." "Yes, ma'am." "Well, you're here now. Room's upstairs, second on the left. Wash basin's fresh. That trunk yours?" Isaac nodded. "I'll carry it up." The woman gave a tight nod and stepped aside. Vera followed Isaac up the narrow staircase, her boots soft on the worn carpet runner. The room smelled of lavender soap and drywood. A narrow bed stood beneath the window and a small writing desk sat tucked against the wall. A white basin gleamed on the washstand. He set the trunk down gently, then straightened, glancing at the desk. "Looks like a place a teacher might belong." Vera brushed her fingers along the edge of the windowsill. "It'll do." He lingered in the doorway, resting one hand against the frame. "I'll be by tomorrow, see how you fare." She turned to face him. "Thank you, Isaac." He gave a quiet nod, then stepped back, boots creaking on the stairs as he left. The door clicked shut behind him, and for the first time in days, Vera let herself sit without worry pressing at her ribs. She folded her hands in her lap and stared at the pale curtains fluttering in the breeze. By morning, she had washed, dressed, and walked to the schoolhouse. The building stood just off the churchyard, whitewashed and lean, with a crooked bell hanging above the door. Inside, benches lined up in tidy rows and a chalkboard covered in faint arithmetic. A boy no older than 9 peeked through the open window, then vanished when she turned. "Miss Halstead?" A voice called from the doorway. She turned to see a man in a gray vest and a wide-brimmed hat in his hands. His beard was neatly trimmed, and his eyes were wary but kindly. "I'm Reverend Leary. I help oversee the school." He stepped inside, glancing around. "You found it all right?" "I did. We've 15 children, ages 6 to 14. Some read well, others not at all. You'll have full say over the lessons." She nodded once. "I'll begin in the morning." He looked relieved. "I'll let the families know." After he left, she lingered a while, brushing dust from the window ledge, opening the supply cupboard, finding half-used slates and worn-down pencils. It wasn't much, but it was hers to shape. That evening, she sat on the boarding house porch with a book open in her lap, though she hadn't turned a page in some time. Her eyes kept drifting to the road, where the light caught on every rider's hat brim, every wagon wheel. When Isaac appeared around the bend, leading his mare at a slow trot. She closed the book without thinking. He tied the horse to the post and stepped up beside her. "You find the school?" "I did. I start tomorrow." He took the railing beside her, resting one boot against the lower beam. "You look like someone who's already done a week's work. I've never taught more than 5 at once. Now I've 15 and half of them likely don't want to be there." A faint smile tugged at his mouth. "Sounds about right." She glanced at him. "Did you go to school?" "Some. Till I was 12. Then I started driving cattle for my uncle and didn't see a desk again." She studied his profile, the way the dusk softened the hard lines of his jaw. "You're quieter than most men I've met." He didn't look at her. "Noise don't get much done." They sat in silence again, the kind that didn't ask to be filled. The wind stirred the hem of her skirt and carried the scent of sage from somewhere down the hill. She turned her eyes back to the road. "You said you had business in town?" "I did. Settled it yesterday." "Then why are you still here?" He looked at her then, slow and sure. "Because you're still here." Something in her chest shifted, unfamiliar and warm. She looked down at her hands resting in her lap. "You don't know me," she said, voice barely above the wind. "Not really. I know you didn't complain once that night in the desert. I know you carry yourself like someone who's had to keep going longer than most. And I know you're not afraid to start over." Her breath caught. She looked at him fully now. "Do you mean to stay?" He didn't hesitate. "If you want me to." She didn't answer right away. Just let the quiet settle around them again, heavy with meaning. Then she reached for his hand, not the way she had at the station, desperate and lost, but with calm certainty. His fingers closed around hers, firm and warm. And the sun, low behind the hills, cast a golden light over the porch as if to seal the moment in place. The heat came early that morning, drawn up from the red earth before Vera had even buttoned her bodice. Dust coiled along the road as she stepped through the schoolhouse gate, a leather satchel tucked beneath her arm. Inside the building, the air held the scent of chalk, lamp oil, and cedar. 10 children sat waiting, eyes alert, hands folded. The older ones shifted in their seats, glancing toward her with a mix of appraisal and something close to challenge. She wrote her name on the board, slow and clear, then turned. "We'll begin with maps," she said. "You'll each draw the territory as best you know it." The rustle of paper started up, and then the scratching of pencils filled the quiet. Vera moved among them, correcting grip, offering nods. A girl with a long braid whispered that her brother had seen an elk near the mesa. A boy with a broad forehead and bare feet asked if the Colorado River reached the Pacific. She answered each question with care, her voice even, her posture steady though her shoulders ached by midday. Outside, the sun baked the roof. By the time she dismissed the class, her back was damp with sweat. She stepped outside and found Isaac across the yard, leaning against the hitch post with his hat in his hands. "Reckon you survived," he said. "I did," she replied, brushing dust from her skirt. "Though my throat may never forgive me." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small tin. "Throat lozenges. My mother swore by them when she lectured the church women." Vera blinked, accepting the tin. "You never mentioned her before." He shrugged. "She passed when I was 17. Had opinions about everything." Vera opened the tin and took one. "What would she have thought of me?" Isaac's gaze caught hers, steady and unreadable. "She'd have thought you were too thin, too determined, and exactly what I needed." Her lips parted, but she found no reply. The lozenge melted cool against her tongue. They walked together toward the mercantile. He kept pace beside her, his presence quiet but anchoring. Inside the shop, shelves brimmed with flour sacks, bolts of calico, and metal tins of lye soap. The proprietor, a woman with tobacco-stained fingers, nodded when Vera asked for a small slate and a tin of ink. Isaac added a jar of pickled beets to the counter. "For your supper." "I'm not sure I like beets." "Then you'll learn," he said, dry as the hills. She laughed, soft and brief, and it surprised her how easy it came. As they stepped back onto the street, the wind caught the hem of her skirt and lifted it against his leg. She steadied herself, and his hand went to her elbow without hesitation. You walk like someone who doesn't trust the dirt. I walk like someone raised with sidewalks. I'll teach you the difference, he said. They reached the boarding house just as the sun dipped behind the hills. The porch boards were warm beneath their feet, and the air smelled of simmered beans from the kitchen behind the wall. He sat with her, but didn't lean close. His hands rested on his knees, his hat beside him. You ever think of settling somewhere permanent? She asked. I've thought of it. Never saw the point until now. What changed? His hand moved, slow and deliberate, resting lightly on the space between them. You did. Her breath caught again, but she didn't look away. I don't know what to expect from you, Isaac Merrick. You'll learn, he said, voice low. Same way I'm learning you. The screen door creaked open behind them, and Mrs. Thistle stepped out. Supper's near ready, Vera. You and your friend are welcome to eat. Isaac stood, brushing his palm against his trousers. I'll take her home first. Vera looked up. This is my home now. He paused, then nodded. Then I'll wait till you're done. You don't have to. I know. She rose, the jar of beets tucked under one arm, the tin of lozenges in her pocket. I'll save you a chair. Their eyes held a moment longer, and something settled between them, not a promise, not yet, but the shape of one forming. Then she stepped into the house, and he remained on the porch, the evening wind lifting the dust around his boots, the quiet between them filled with everything that hadn't yet been said. Thursday brought a dry heat that pressed down even in the early hours, and Vera rose before the bell tower struck 6, her hair still damp from washing in the basin. She braided it back with a flat ribbon and left the boarding house with her slate, a wrapped biscuit, and a steadying breath. As she walked toward the schoolhouse, she noticed a wagon parked beside the livery with a broken axle, its rear wheel resting lopsided in the red dirt. 2 boys crouched beside it, muttering over the damage, while an older man sat on the wagon bench, rubbing his temples beneath a battered hat. She passed without pause, but her thoughts lingered on the cracked spokes and the way the boys' fingers were black with grease. Her own father, long gone now, would have had it fixed by sunrise. She swallowed and crossed the yard to the school steps. Inside, the children were louder than the day before. Vera didn't raise her voice. She simply opened the arithmetic reader and began reading aloud. By the 3rd line, the room had fallen into stillness. They spent the first hour working in pairs, and Vera moved among them, her mind half on the crooked wagon outside. When noon came, she dismissed the class and stepped toward the river bend where cottonwoods offered a sliver of shade. She sat on a flat stone and pulled her biscuit from its cloth, but before she could take a bite, a rider's shadow fell across her hands. She looked up to find Isaac astride his mare, reins loose in one hand, a canvas bag slung across his saddle horn. Thought you'd be in the schoolhouse, he said. Lunch break. She leaned back against the tree trunk. I needed quiet. He dismounted and tied the mare to a low branch. I brought something. From the bag, he drew out a folded piece of oilcloth and unwrapped it to reveal a small carving, a horse's head, whittled from light wood, its shape clean and deliberate. I made it when I was 15, he said. Didn't mean to keep it this long, but I found it last night in the bottom of my saddle pouch. Vera turned the carving in her hand. The grain ran smooth beneath her thumb. It's beautiful. Thought maybe your students could pass it around when they read. Keep their hands busy. She looked up at him, then back at the carving. You think of things most men don't. He sat beside her, not touching, but near enough she could feel the heat from his arm. I had a brother once. Couldn't sit still unless he had something to hold. Father didn't understand, it called him soft. But Ma kept giving him buttons and stones. What happened to him? Fever took him one winter. His voice was quiet but not unsteady. I think of him sometimes when I see boys fidgeting. Vera rested the carving in her lap. You carry a lot. He didn't answer right away. The river murmured against the rocks, low and constant. So do you, he said finally. She turned toward him. You don't ask questions the way other men do. They usually ask before they've earned answers. Vera nodded once, then stood and brushed the dust from her skirt. I should get back. There's a boy who keeps trying to write letters backward. Isaac stood with her, gathering the oilcloth. I'll walk you part way. They crossed the dry grass together, the sun catching on the edge of her sleeve, the schoolhouse coming into view just beyond the ridge. As they reached the gate, a boy with a torn collar darted past and pulled the door open wide, scattering dust across the floor. Vera turned to Isaac. "Are you riding out again soon? I was thinking I'd stay through Sunday. The ranch is fine without me a few more days. Then maybe you'll join me for supper Saturday. There's a table out back of the boarding house. No one uses it." He looked at her and something shifted in his eyes, quiet but certain. "I'd like that." She stepped inside without another word, but her chest felt lighter. Behind her, Isaac lingered only a moment before turning back down the road, the sun casting his shadow long across the dust. Saturday brought a wind that stirred grit off the roads and left a haze over the western hills. Vera spent the morning airing the linens in her room and brushing dust from the porch rails. When the sun reached its highest point, she stepped into the kitchen and asked Mrs. Thistle if she might use the stove. The older woman lifted a brow but handed over a bundle of flour and pressed her lips into something close to approval. By late afternoon, the scent of bread filled the house. Vera set the loaf on the windowsill to cool, then peeled apples brought in from a trader the day before. Her fingers moved with quiet purpose. It had been years since she'd cooked for anyone but herself. As dusk settled, she carried a basket out to the table beneath the cottonwood behind the boarding house. The table was old, its planks gray with sun, but she had scrubbed it until it gleamed faintly in the fading light. She laid out a cloth, a tin lantern, and 2 plates. Isaac arrived just as the last pink stretched across the sky. He wore a clean shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, and his boots had been scraped free of dust. He carried a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. "Didn't know if you had butter," he said, setting it down. "Traded for it this morning. From a woman near the creek who keeps 2 jerseys." Vera smiled, the curve of it soft and unhurried. "I didn't. Thank you." They sat, the quiet broken only by the creak of the old bench and the rustle of leaves overhead. She passed him a slice of bread, still warm, then spooned out apple preserve. He took a bite, chewed, then nodded once. "Tastes like something worth staying for." She poured water from a ceramic jug into 2 cups. "You've stayed longer than I expected. I've had fewer reasons to leave." They ate slowly. The air cooled, and the lantern cast a soft glow across the table. When the meal was finished, Vera gathered the crumbs into her palm and brushed them into the basket, then folded the cloth. "I thought you might leave after Sunday," she said. "I thought I might too." She looked at him directly then, her voice steady. "What would you be riding back to?" He leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. "A cabin with a roof that needs fixing. A herd that doesn't miss me much. A man named Clayton who's been waiting for me to decide if I'm staying on that land or selling it." "And have you decided?" "I have." She waited. "I want to stay," he said. Her breath caught, not from surprise, but from the weight of it settling into place. "I'd like to build something that doesn't get packed up every few years," he added. "And I'd rather do it with someone who sees the same sun I do." She reached across the table, her hand finding his. "Then stay." He turned her palm upward, his thumb brushing across the base of her fingers. "There's a house 2 miles north of here," he said. "Stone foundation, 2 good rooms, and a piece of land that catches the last light just right. I passed it once. It's standing empty." She folded her fingers around his. "I've never lived on land before. You'd learn." She smiled again, her voice a whisper. "You say that like you'll be there to teach me." "I will." They sat in the quiet a moment more, stars beginning to show above them. Then he stood and offered his hand. She took it and they walked back toward the house, her fingers twined with his, the night around them still and sure. In the weeks that followed, Vera taught her students how to measure shadows, how to spell the names of rivers, how to trace the arc of the seasons. Isaac repaired the school's porch steps without being asked. He brought her kindling when the mornings grew sharp and carried her basket from the store when the weight grew too much. They made no declarations. They didn't need them. By late November, Vera stood beside him before a county clerk in a small room behind the mercantile. She wore a dark green dress she'd hemmed herself, and Isaac wore his best coat, the elbows patched neatly. They signed their names in ink and stepped into the bright cold with hands clasped and hearts steadied. Their home stood tucked between two low hills, with a fence Isaac built and a garden Vera laid out with careful rows. She taught in town 3 days a week, and he rode fence lines on the others. Every evening they returned to the same table, the same porch, the same warmth. And in that quiet corner of Arizona territory where red earth met blue sky, Vera Halstead and Isaac Merrick built a life marked not by grandness, but by steady grace, by bread shared, by hands held, and by the kind of love that doesn't need to be spoken to be known.